This is the last year for Vin Scully, the famous Dodgers broadcaster. He's one of the few links we have to really a bygone era of baseball, having seen so much of it over the course of his life. I think on the radio today they were talking about how when Russell Martin was catching for the Dodgers, somebody asked you, what Dodgers catcher does Russell Martin remind you of? And he said, well, let me see, I've seen all of them, so incredible. And it's true. Maybe I would like to get a word from you about Vin Scully, if possible, and storytelling within the game and within the broadcast. Was that something you had to learn a little bit in terms of when you drop a story, when you maybe take the narrative of the game over to another place, and the ability to do that, which he does flawlessly? He's one of the masters. Was that something that you've been conscious of?
Yes, Vin Scully, I believe he's 88, retiring at the end of this year. He started in New York with the Dodgers and went out to LA with the Dodgers. But, he had that iconic voice, and everybody related him to Dodger baseball, and he's seen it all. And I think his ability to tie the generations together so flawlessly, and he can relate stories, and he has a unique knack for taking an event that happens during a game and relating it to one that might have happened in the 50s and spin it to a point where everybody's interested about it. It's not like somebody saying, well, in the old days it used to be a lot better, but Vin would talk about how they compared and why they're similar and why they're so tied together. But a terrific announcer. I grew up a Giant fan. Okay. I'm still a Giant fan, and we had Russ Hodges and Lon Simmons, who too started in New York with the Giants. And there was a tremendous rivalry, and still is, between the Dodgers and the Giants. So we didn't hear Vin Scully as much as we heard Lon Simmons and Russ Hodges, but everybody has that affinity. And I know here, a lot of you would have grown up Ernie Harwell fans, listening to the Tigers, and Danny Gallivan, listening to Montreal, and those great voices that linked a team to that voice. And I think, that's what Vin Scully has, and we'll miss that when he's gone.
Is one of his geniuses in terms of broadcasting pace? Or what is the thing that separates?
I think he links pace to the game better than anybody in the game. And that's something that I was reminded early on in my career. I went to work with a gentleman named Harry Coyle, who was the director for This Week in Baseball for 40 years. Wow. And he worked with everybody. He worked with Scully and Graziola and Kubek and Drysdale and Pee Wee Reese, and he worked with everybody. And the one thing he always told me was, if you don't have anything to say, don't talk. Because if you're talking, people will shut you off. But when you're not talking and all of a sudden you say something, they'll scoot to the edge of their seat and listen to what you're saying. Baseball on television is beautiful because it has pictures. And so often during the course of a game, it can be the first inning, the third inning, or the ninth inning, we'll just let the pitchers talk. And you can see what's going on, and you can sense the emotion, and it's more powerful if you see it from a fan's perspective instead of me trying to interrupt it by interpreting what you're seeing. And we had that firsthand in the Cal Ripken game. I announced the game in which Cal Ripken broke Lou Gehrig's record for most consecutive games played. And when he broke the record in the fifth inning, the game became official, we didn't talk for 22 minutes. Not a word. And my partner was Chris Berman. And for him not to talk in 5 minutes is an accomplishment.
Well, it's ironic. That's really considered one of the great moments in sports broadcasting. And it's ironic that it's great because you did nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm remembered for two things in my career: as a player for breaking my leg, and as a broadcaster for not talking. But we actually won an Emmy Award for that, and it was a great moment. But it was the producer and director, and nobody said a word. Brooks Robinson was sitting between us when Cal was pushed out of the dugout and ran around the field. And I turned and looked at Brooks, and he had tears in his eyes, and that did me. And I wasn't going to talk about anything till I could collect my thoughts.